I guess now we've got, and this is the one that I told you to have prep for. So if
Yes.
you had to do a Mount Rushmore of Minnesota sports figures, and that can be owners, players, coaches, media members. Who is your top four Mount Rushmore?
Yeah, I legitimately love this topic because, to Grant's point, it kind of can depend on the time of year, the time of season, recency bias, all of that stuff, right? So when you floated this to me, I thought, well, what angle or what spin can I put on it? I didn't want to make a mockery of it. That's not where I'm going. There's some solid work that went into this list. But Purple Daily is a podcast that at times I help out with, only 1% of the time. But the Purple Daily, the Vikings podcast, has a motto. They just want to see the Vikings win a Super Bowl before we die. The podcast that I worked on twice a week during the season was Before We Die. Jesse Pierce, who does some hockey podcasts here in the Twin Cities, and Thor Nystrom, big draft guy, big Vikings fan. I'm trying to will Minnesota teams to raise the bar. Like all the time, like the one, I'm sure this is other states too, but in Minnesota, we love to say, oh, but they made the playoffs, or are they going to make the playoffs? As Bill Guerin said last year, bleep that. It's not about making the playoffs. It's about winning. You put all your blood, sweat, and tears into trying to win a championship, not to be the 7 seed in the NBA playoffs and lose in 5 games in the first round. So with all that in mind, my Minnesota Mount Rushmore only includes 4 players that have won something from consequence. I will just go through them and I'll list them really quickly and I'll let you guys respond. Yes, because we don't win a lot in this town. Some of these are older. Okay. I'll go with them. I'll go with the most recent. Lindsay Whalen definitely belongs to be on that Mount Rushmore. I don't think you can, there's really not many cases you can make against her not being on this for what she's done for women's basketball, what she's done for girls in the state of Minnesota, 4 WNBA championships, Final Four with the Gopher women's basketball team. Think about that, the Gopher women in the Final Four, and a 2-time Olympic gold medalist. So Lindsay Whalen is one of them. Okay, when you think of the Minnesota Twins World Series, I struggled with this one to a degree, and then the answer becomes obvious. Who do most people even today associate the Minnesota Twins with?
Kirby Puckett.
It's Kirby Puckett. Kirby Puckett is on there. 2-time World Series champ, 10-time All-Star. Also a Major League Baseball Hall of Famer. The other 2 are more deeper polls, but I do think you can make a case on any Minnesota sports Mount Rushmore. They should be there. Herb Brooks, 3-time Olympic medalist, bronze medalist as a player, gold and silver as a coach, including the 1980 Miracle on Ice team. 3-time national championship at the University of Minnesota, former North Stars coach. Also, some people don't know this, helped launch St. Cloud State hockey. So he gets points for that. And finally, it's George Mikan, 5-time league champion, including NBA championships, college basketball Hall of Famer, NBA Hall of Famer. I will give out honorable mentions. Cheryl Reeve of the Lynx, Gophers hockey coach Don Lucia, Tom Kelly, of course, and my guy, one of the sweetest gentlemen you will ever meet, former St. Paul Saints manager, George Samus.
Okay, gotcha.
That's my Mount Rushmore.
So you mentioned George Mikan. Do you know a whole lot about? I had the Minneapolis Armory written down.
Yeah.
In case that came up, because I kind of nerd out when it comes to, like, I love looking at old stadiums, abandoned stadiums.
Yeah.
Do you have any, like, as far as, like, insight on the Minneapolis? Because that was where the Lakers played.
Yep.
You see the building, but there's nothing that's really known about it other than right now. I think I heard that they have raves there.
Yeah, and it's. I'm actually going to look it up right now. I mean, it's mainly
of the atmosphere of what those Laker games were like.
It's well, and also too, you had I thought about making a case you could have put Sid Hartman on this list too, the longtime columnist who was of course involved in those Minneapolis Lakers. I wish I could tell you more about it, but I really can't. Other than I do the same thing that you are. I'm a history buff when it comes to U.S. history, but also when it comes to sports history. I do know that people cared about it. We love to think that, oh, well, sports are always getting bigger. Sports are always getting bigger. No, they've always been big. They're always big in the context of the time that you live in. Fran Tarkington once said a while back, the Super Bowl in 1975 was just as big as it is in 2023. The only difference is media changes. How it gets covered and how it gets reported changes. It still meant a heck of a lot to the players, meant a heck of a lot to the league. So I love that you had the Armory wrote down that you would have the foresight to know that I might even bring up George Mikan. But I'm still, as I've told people, I'm only bitter about the Gopher hockey game on Saturday when I think about it. If I don't think about it, I'm over it. But that was the precipice for how I put this list together. Is I only wanted to put winners on the list because you can make a case for a lot of other people. Bud Grant probably should be on there, but the frame of mind when I put this together, Bud Grant didn't win a Super Bowl. You can make cases. Flip Saunders should probably be on there. Flip Saunders won 2 playoff series. Again, they were in the same year. Now he won an NBA championship with the Pistons, but that doesn't count for Minnesota. So you can, again, it's when we started this topic. I love this topic because even in a state like Minnesota, you can probably advocate for as many as 50 people to be on that list.
Yeah, for sure. And so
I want to know who you guys would put on it. Well, that's what I want to know.
I'll let Grant.
So the first person on my list was someone that Ross just mentioned. I know he never won the big game, but 4 NFC titles, the most, iconic coach the Vikings have had. Let's not forget the Seattle playoff game, -20 wind chill. 90 years old, Bud Grant's going out there in the purple polo. He lived in Minnesota his whole life, the Bloomington house. I gotta have Bud Grant on that list.
And I won't fight you on that. Also, since I'm a nerd, I'm a big CFL fan. Bud Grant, big in Winnipeg.
And then my second guy, we're also going to keep it someone in that older age of Minnesota sports, someone with 500 career home runs, Hall of Famer. We're going to Harmon Killebrew. You got the red seat. And
can't argue with that one.
Was it Nickelodeon World Now or whatever it was in the Mall of America for the 5-foot home run, home plate?
Yep.
Right there just shows you how incredibly far that ball was hit. With not the juice baseballs that they have, these days and the technology with that. So Harmon Killebrew's up there. And then, we're going to take it a little more modern time with this guy right here. Was he a head case? Yes. Was he a kook? Yes. Did he accidentally bump someone with his car? Yes. Randy Moss.
Yes.
Was
Did he flip a Tanucci's table?
He probably part of the Love Boat team? Well, he may have been in Las Vegas or Oakland at that point. Okay. Did he walk off the field in Washington in his last game? Yes. But that iconic rookie season, the Dallas, 3 receptions, 163 yards, 3 touchdowns. How he was just the center of the football world at that point, where just chuck it up, Randy's going to get it. He was the hero for such a huge, our generation. So Randy Moss is there for me.
And it is a sports crime against humanity that he couldn't ever appear in the Super Bowl with the Vikings and then lost to playing for the Patriots and the Niners. That Niners team that he was on and was largely a non-factor. I wanted them to win that Super Bowl just so he could get his ring.
Yeah.
And then number 4,
who's 4?
The one where Ross and we agree on, Kirby Puckett. I mean, the catch in Game 6 to hit the home run for Jack Buck to say, and we'll see you tomorrow night. The statue he's got outside of Target Field, the All-Stars, the huge smile on his face. You think of the Twins, you think of Kirby Puckett.
Yeah, well, and think of this Mount Rushmore. You could make a Mount Rushmore just out of guys from St. Paul. Joe Mauer, Dave Winfield, Paul Molitor, Matt Burke, Chris Winkie. I mean, think of all these other players.
Yep. I thought he was.
Good thing we have this thing called Google.
I want to say he was.
I think he was, actually.
Got to be from around that area.
This says Minneapolis.
Okay.
For some reason, I always want to say Bloomington for him.
Okay. Can't forget about Cole Aldrich,
Bloomington,
the Jayhawk.
There you go. There you go. I'm going to go ahead and mildly confirm Bloomington because Herbeck attended just a staunch rival of the Lakeville High School. He played for Kennedy High School in Bloomington.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay. So then Grant has his, Ross has his. That leaves me up. And I'm going to go where we all have a consensus on our Mount Rushmore. It is Kirby Puckett. When you think of Twins baseball, like Grant said, you think of the home run we'll see tomorrow night. Before that game, he goes into the locker room and said, "Hop on my back. I'm carrying you guys to Game 7." What did he do? He did that. And then second one is I have Herb Brooks, the 1980 Miracle on Ice. However many championships he won at Minnesota. Like Ross said, he brought St. Cloud State hockey. I believe it is named the Herb Brooks Hockey Center.
Yep, it is.
Something along those lines. So Herb Brooks is my second. Third one is, I think, if it's a true Minnesota Mount Rushmore, you have to have somebody that didn't win a championship, and it's Bud Grant. I think when people think of Minnesota sports in general, they think of Bud Grant. They think of the guy in the purple with the Vikings hat, that stern look on his face.
Colder than bleep outside, but he's acting like it's in Hawaii. He's in Hawaii.
Doesn't let his guys wear hand warmers. There were no heaters allowed on Metropolitan Stadium because we need to be tough. And, they make it to the championship or make it to 4 Super Bowls. And you know what? If they played that game somewhere cold, I guarantee you the Vikings come out on top in at least a couple of those for sure.
A great point, by the way. I just want to interject. Great point that if it's a Minnesota Mount Rushmore, you do need somebody on who didn't win a championship. Yeah. That's the line of the podcast. So kudos to you. I'm actually going to clap for that.
And then to round out my Mount Rushmore was the guy who saw it. He's forgotten more Minnesota sports than we will ever know. He just passed away. That would have been an incredible podcast guest. Would be the one and only Sid Hartman.
Yep.
Just there, he saw everything. He was one of those guys that was, from reading articles and just watching interviews, he was someone that was not going to lie to you. He was going to tell you like it is. He was great friends with Bud Grant, and I guarantee you there were some contentious arguments they had back in the day. So that's why I went sports figures, because Sid is Minnesota sports, and he kind of is the one that set the standard for guys like you, Ross, Paul Allen. I'm trying to think of other Minnesota.
Even we have another legacy person who I see in the office at least once a week with Patrick Royce. Patrick Royce, who knew Sid for years. So it's guys like that too. They're more than just sports. They're storytellers. They're entertainers, and they're just as important as the players. Players hate to see that. They probably don't even agree with that. But players can't do what they do without media telling their story. And it's important to have those guys in your community, guys and gals.
And you look at the relationships he had. He was very close with Kevin Garnett, because I remember watching interviews where Sid would go put his famous recorder up there, and Kevin Garnett would be giving him a hard time. What, do you just run the show here, Sid?
Yeah. And then of course every coach that shows up for their presser, you get the first thing they do is they call out Sid, because they've been told by their handlers, oh, by the way, that's Sid Hartman over there.
Yeah. And so my honorable mentions, I think the one I had, and I actually originally had it and then I changed it right away, was Tom Kelly.
Yep.
The last major Minnesota sports team that won a championship. So you have to have him on that list.